can bring him such misery. When a man loves a woman.
Hey guys, this is Spazman13579 here. I hope you enjoyed that little intro. Those were recent videos I had taken from Chicago in May of 2016. This video is how to install LED light bulbs into any HO scale locomotive. I found these little LED light bulbs on eBay. I've been using them in my engines recently and they're really fantastic. I like them a lot. They never burn out. They're super bright. They draw next to no current. And they're super cheap, which is the best part. So I'm going to show you guys how to install them today in your engines. Let's get started. We're going to be using Details West part number 341, which are the little lenses right here. We're also going to be using the LEDs off of eBay. They include resistors, heat shrink, and the LEDs themselves. Be very careful when handling these because they're tiny and they have little soldered wires on them. We're going to start here by twisting the ends of the lights with the LEDs on them. Be very careful again because they are very fragile. Just twist it with your fingers. You can use a drill if you want to. Again, be careful with it. This is just so installation is much easier down the road because the wires will go everywhere inside the locomotive shell. Using a pair of tweezers, put a 90-degree bend on the LED wire. Just try to get the wire as close as you possibly can to the LED. This is going to allow for clearance for the light to go inside the light housing. You can use any 3-volt power supply to supply power to the LED and test it as we go along. I recommend testing it every once in a while just to make sure that everything is A-OK. Using a fresh X-Acto blade, you can chop off one of the 341 lenses. Just make sure when you cut it off there's no burrs on there. If there are burrs, use a piece of sandpaper or something to knock it down, and just make sure you don't sand down the front or rear faces of the lens. I used a piece of masking tape to hold down the lens while I was working on it. Just make sure that you tape it with the curved side down so we're working on the flat back of it. Using some CA, just in a toothpick, you can dot some CA in the back of it and then take the LED and place it directly on the center of that face of the lens. Make sure it's not off center, it's got to be right in the middle. You can use some CA kicker to speed up the process, and after you put that on you should be able to pull up the LED entirely without it falling off, and it should look something like that. Again, just make sure the light is perfectly centered on that lens, otherwise it'll look kind of funky. And here's me testing it again. Just repeat this as many times as you need for every light that's going to be in your locomotive. We're going to be installing these lights into an Atlas CN GP40, but again, as long as it's the HO scale, it'll work in just about any locomotive. Just remove the shell from the chassis. We're not going to be using the chassis at all, just the shell right now. We'll be installing LEDs into the front headlights, the 2 ditch lights, and the rear lights for a total of 6 LEDs. Using a number 55 drill bit and a pin vise, we're going to go through each hole we're installing LEDs into. Even if a hole's already there, just go through it with the number 55 to make sure no paint has taken up any of the holes that are in there, and we'll get a nice clean fit for our new light lenses. I'm going to install one of the LEDs on camera here, but everything else is going to be identical to this process. So just feed the wires through the hole you're going to be putting the light into. Make sure you don't get tangled on anything or anything like that. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can just pull the wire through so the LED meets up with the housing. And then once the housing is on there, most of the time friction should hold it on, but if friction is not holding it on, just use some CA or white glue to hold it in there. And since this is a ditch light, you want to keep the wire hidden. I drilled a number 60 hole behind the lens so I can route the wire down beneath the shell and right into the frame. And once again, just checking out the LED here, making sure it's all working. Looks like I have to put some black paint in the back of the LED housing to make sure it doesn't flood out the back. And here are all the lights installed in the front as well as the rear. We're all ready to go now for some soldering. I have a pair of helping hands to help me when I'm soldering. They really help a lot. You don't turn up your iron to about 500 degrees. I put mine at 700, but it's way too hot. 500 should work perfectly fine. We're going to be wiring these LEDs in parallel, so put red to red, black to black, and just solder those up. If you twist the leads together, it helps a lot when you solder so they don't fly all over the place. And then once you solder up all the leads on your LEDs, you are essentially done. And like I said at the beginning of this video, these LEDs will basically never burn out and they take very little power to light up, so they're really fantastic, and the video makes them look kind of blue, but they are golden white in real life. In the next video I'll be covering how to install both an ESU Lock Sound Select Direct decoder and an ESU Lock Sound Select hardwire decoder, as well as the speakers for both of those. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.